What is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of What Just Happened here on the Big Red Nation channel. My name is Jason. What just happened? I think us collectively as a fan base probably said that several times during this game with Michigan State. Uh, man, where to start with this game, man? Um, what just a crazy roller coaster ride of a game. Uh, and we'll dive into kind of more specifics here as we go through this show, but it just so many different things and so many different thoughts about this game and different things in this game. So there's a lot to talk about. And at the end of the day, we still won, right? At the end of the day, we're still 4-1. You go look around college football and you see it, some of the teams that lost and then who they lost to. You know, I think just in this new era of college football, we just sometimes you just got to be happy with a win. Um, so I don't want this show to kind of get too negative. But there's one thing that I want to be on this channel and as a creator, and that's just being honest. If I'm going to sit here in a preview show and give my thoughts and my predictions on what's going to happen in the game or why I think this will happen, and then those things don't happen, I'm not going to now come into this show where I'm talking about the game and act like I never said anything in the preview stuff or anything like that. So, I definitely got them watching this game, and I was just kind of thinking to myself, like, yeah, I'm gonna have to walk back a lot of things. But the one thing that I think did come true in this game that I did mention going into it is with both teams coming off of a bye week, you know, this early in the season, a lot of things can change. They can change, tweak things here and there, do some change ups. So then they look like a different team. And at least defensively, Michigan State definitely looked different. Um, definitely looked different than what they had been, you know. Uh, but yeah, and some of it was, you know, self-inflicted wounds that kind of helped Michigan State look better. There's no doubt about that. But just man, so many different thoughts about this game, and it's going to be hard not to sound like I'm coming off as negative. Um, but I thought Dylan was going to have himself a game. I thought Dana was too, and I knew going in about the wind could be a factor. I just thought that our offense, right? What our offense has kind of been, what a lot of fans and other people have kind of been mad about this offense is that we don't go deep enough, right? It's a lot of short passes, outlet passes, keeping it within 5, 6, 7, 8 yards. The wind really doesn't affect those small throws or those shorter throws like that. And so I thought that we would still have a game plan that was going to really take advantage of their poor part of their defense, which has been their passing defense. And then oddly enough, and kind of just what I think by watching a lot of other people's shows about the game, and I can guarantee I'm not the only one that thinks this. This was probably Dana's worst game in calling plays since he's been at Nebraska. Um, just the inability, like, I don't help our offensive line out a little bit. Let's do some play action passes. Our running game, while not getting a ton of yards, still I think was averaging, and we're going to look at the stats, so we'll figure this out a little bit more. But I want to say it was like I think they ran for 5 or 6 yards to carry during the game. But then just like for whatever reason during that a bad period of the time, the dark period of the game, we just kind of like totally abandoned running. It just became straight passing, which I think also led to how long that the thing happened. The dark part happened. Um, But yeah, it was just such a crazy game. Um, let's see here. But yeah, the win. So we'll go ahead and let's just touch on the win part of this whole game scenario and get this out of the way. Going in, like I said, I didn't think that the win would be that big of a factor in the game. One, because, like I said, our offense and the way we run our offense, it kind of um, doesn't really matter much because we don't go deep much. Um, but clearly, by the time the game was over with, and you noticed, I mean, I noticed it right away, without seeing any stats coming from the game. By that fourth quarter, end of the third, fourth quarter, I was kind of like, man, this wind definitely had a big factor into this how this game went. Um, mainly just because I think it changed how both Michigan State and Nebraska thought and theorized about how they were going to attack this game, how they called plays, when they decided to call or not call to go for field goals or punts or whatever else. And clearly, each team looked better. And both teams, Michigan State and Nebraska, looked like total different teams going with the win than they did going against the win. And then after the game, I believe all but 7 points were scored going with the wind from in the game. Out of all the points in the game, I think only 7 of them went with the wind. I think just that last Michigan State touchdown right there at the end of the game was the only points that were scored going into the wind. That's I think a very obvious fact that the wind had a huge factor in this game. Now, again, don't want to make it as excuses necessarily of how Nebraska played. I think there are several factors that went into why Nebraska had that just kind of weird lull in the middle of the game. One, I think it is the wind. 2, the odd play calling. It's almost like whenever we get into the red zone and he starts calling fade routes instead of maybe crossing routes or a play action pass or a run, stuff like that, rub routes, anything like that, maybe that might work a little bit better than just constant fades that we're throwing out of bounds 3 times in a row. But that's kind of like how he all of a sudden started calling the game. Because, it started off awesome, right? Scoring 14 points right off the bat, started feeling like, okay, hey, this is exactly what, the players and rules kind of saying, like, hey, we're going to come out, we're going to do this, this, and this, and you better watch out. We're going to be ready for Michigan State. And boom, block punt. I mean, special teams played outstanding. All the good returns, the blocked punt, the 2, of course, Kyle Kinnanen kicked a field goal. The first couple punts by Archie, I think he punted them a little too high, got them a little too much up into the wind. But his final 2, pinned them deep, were very good punts. They muffed it and we recovered one on a kickoff. So, special teams came out, played their butts off. It was great. But defense, I think, also came out, improved, played very well. I think there was 2 drives that together let's see here. I think I wrote this down. Hold on. I don't want to get this stat wrong because it's a pretty crazy stat. See if I can find it. Yeah. So I think the D looked really good, but there were 2 drives that were combined 16 minutes of game clock. That's a lot just for 2 drives. And that was very UCLA-esque from last year. Where they kind of sustained a lot of drives. Because, go back to whenever I was talking about the Michigan game, I mentioned how one way to know if your defensive line really is kind of getting blown off the ball. That's usually whenever teams are sustaining drives, right? And or can get chunk yardages. It's not just like one big huge play like how Michigan was getting like a 50-yard run or a 75-yard run. It'd be a lot of like 10-yard runs, 6-yard runs, 7-yard runs, 8-yard, 10-yard, 12-yard, and they just kind of slowly move down the field on you. Now, I say that, but in these situations, it wasn't necessarily them running the ball that got them these things. It was like those two drives specifically were a lot of things that reminded me of last year's defense. And we'd get them in a third and long situation. And then I think maybe in normal situations with the wind, if the wind wasn't as bad, maybe they would have been able to get them to punt or kick a field goal in certain situations. But instead, they were just going for it because we'd get them in third and long and we would give them just enough yards that now it's a fourth and short and very manageable to get. And so they just go for it. And then we couldn't get off the field because we let them be perfect on fourth down conversions. So, but overall, I thought that the defense really got better from the Michigan week and prior weeks. I think our defensive line is getting better. They looked really good. They held them. We'll look at the stats here in just a second, but thought that they, did very well against the run. Because look, running quarterbacks are going to get their yards, be able to scramble and get yards. That's going to happen. Now, you can't let them run a quarterback sneak for 4 yards and get a touchdown and look like he never got touched. You can't do that. So I'm not saying that, our run defense looked perfect, not by any stretch. But, I just think that our defense definitely got better. The offensive line, they did the switch up, right? So they had Pritchard at left tackle, moved Gunner over to right, which I think in the long run, this is going to be the better option. Because there were times that I think the offensive line did look very good. A lot of people are going to see all the sacks and kind of just go straight to the offensive line. And while, yes, there were times that they did look bad and did just get blown by, there's a lot of holding on to the ball way too long and the inability to move in a pocket for Dylan. That is something that he just desperately has to get better at. It is okay to throw the ball away. Just throw it away. It doesn't have to go to anybody. Just throw it away. You can do that. You don't just have to keep getting sacked. I don't know what's going through his mind. He kind of went back to playing like he did last year. Missing guys that were open, not trusting his wide receivers enough to make a play. Because he sits there and kind of pats, like he kind of waits for him to get super open instead of, if he's got to step on a guy, just throw it. Let him go make a play. Have him catch the ball. It's like it almost comes off like Dylan is so afraid to make a mistake or a bad play that's what stalls his decision making sometimes. And that's whenever, like he'll see let's say he sees Hunter coming across the middle, but the guy's like just on him. He's so afraid that if he throws it, it's going to be an interception or deflected and not be a completed pass that he's like, not yet. Wait, oops, sacked. And he's so locked in on that, waiting for that right moment to throw it that he doesn't see the rush then coming. And then I've talked about this several times, but his favorite way to escape a pocket is just keep backpedaling back and then maybe spin out and go. And, whenever you have speed rushers, as an offensive tackle, you're supposed to just keep running them up the field. So whenever you have a quarterback that just wants to keep also running up the field or running, for him would be backwards. Like he's going to run into the rush every time. There's not much more an offensive tackle can do. So, he's definitely got to work on that. Or else this is just going to continue and he's just going to get sacked 4, 5, 6 times a game. So that's something that definitely needs to change. Let's see here. The whole running back thing that that they talked about, the backup running back or the running game thing that they want to do. Again, like I said, I think sometimes the game plan changes whenever stuff happens. So don't be shocked if we don't necessarily see it. I think we did see it obviously in that first touchdown run where Heinrich came in at quarterback, handed the ball off to Dylan, then Dylan handed the ball back off to Emmett on a reverse. I like the play. I thought that was really cool. But didn't see it the rest of the game. And again, I'm not sure why necessarily in this situation, whenever you got such high winds, throwing the ball around the field is not necessarily the smartest thing. So why not run Heinrich a little bit more, Emmett? Even, Mackay, whenever he got in a couple times, I thought he ran the ball pretty decent. So I think that might be something that they're going to do is play around more with Heinrich in that position. So I think that'll be interesting to see going forward how much they do continue to do that type of stuff. But I thought that was kind of cool. But again, wasn't shocked that we saw it the one time and then didn't see it the rest of the game. During that small part, the dark period of the game, I felt like we were starting to see the old team again. The old team that just would start snowballing. But it's clearly not. These guys kept playing hard, and pulled themselves out of the mud, and finally got one play to go. It worked. Got that nice little pass out to Jacory, and then boom, things started rolling again. And it got us back to where we finally had the win back behind us, because again, we had it in the first quarter and then in the fourth quarter, and both quarters obviously, like, we looked insanely like the way better team over Michigan State, right? And because of the block punt for a touchdown, Michigan State got the ball, had the ball on offense, right? Took some time off the clock, then got the ball right back. And then that's whenever they went on their big 10-minute, 17-play drive that took them into the second quarter, which then gave them the wind at their back. So from the first touchdown, the Heinrich to Dylan to Emmett touchdown, from there all the way until the fourth quarter, Nebraska was always playing into the wind. And again, not to make excuses, but I think that was a huge factor on why we looked so bad. But again, I also think it goes back to Dylan's inability to really work the pocket and holding onto the ball too long, and then some bad offensive tackle play and the bad play calling. Why aren't we running like play action passes? Why aren't we having him roll out a little bit? Do some different things, throw some more screens, do some running back draws. To get these guys coming up, to stop some of that speed rushing and kind of make them think more if we kind of burn them a couple times. So again, those are all the different things that were just kind of, but again, like I said, they found a way at the end of the day, and then they still won by 11. And really, if they would have stopped them on that last kind of trash time touchdown, it would have been by 17. At a time, especially whenever they went up 21-14, Michigan State, man, I was down. because I did. I felt like we were back in the groin kick era, and it man. And I remember even I looked at my dad and I was like when maybe like when do us as fans start to realize or come to the realization that maybe this program isn't ever coming back to being anything outside of just a team that exists. And because it felt like that. Like I started thinking that, oh no, they're gonna beat us. Like there's no way this offense is gonna go tie this game back up or be able to win. Not the way they're playing. There's no way. Like our defense is gonna have to score a touchdown, or we're gonna have to get a special teams touchdown somehow. But there's no way with this offense that we're gonna be able to come back. I know we're only down 7, but man, it feels like 70. And if that's the case, then maybe this team isn't any good. Maybe this season just turns back into being another 6 or 5, 7 win season. And that's not what we want. Maybe we do end up, maybe we are just a Rutgers, a Minnesota, where, hey, every year we're hoping to go win 8 or 9. That'd be great. Let's just stay middle of the road and hope that we don't get mad every Saturday. And the fact that they then came out of that, man, a huge sigh of relief for me and what I think about what this program is going to be. Because man, that was a hard part. Usually I don't get like that during games, but man, something about that period of time, and I think definitely like that whole sequence where Ja'Cory had that really good return to like the 26, 25-yard line, and then we ended up with a 4th and 42 and had a punt. It just started feeling like, oh no, it's unraveled. Like this is not good. And man, that was rough. So that was definitely tough. Started having those type of thoughts come in is never fun either. But you know what? Like I said, the guys, dude, they kept fighting. They clearly are not the same team that we've been in the past. We did see that obviously that same fight like in the Cincinnati game and the Michigan game. I know the Michigan game didn't end up in a win, but it didn't ever feel like the games and teams in the past. That felt like just two good teams facing each other, and one made just a few more better plays and were able to pull out the win. This one started legit feeling like groin kick era Husker football, but they didn't. They pulled it out. I'll touch on this for a couple things. So I know in the stats, you're going to see the stats, and you're going to see penalties are pretty even, pretty much a wash. But man, there were so many penalties or, penalties being committed by Michigan State that they just missed. Like so bad. There's like 2 face masks. The one that when the guy ripped the helmet off of Dylan. There's another face mask earlier in the game. I mean, the constant holding. And it's not like these holdings, I mean, they were so clear to see because they were happening like not in a pile of offensive linemen, but they were happening like on the edges and like during kind of like stretch style plays that you could see it just clear as day. But I guess the rest didn't. I don't know. And then like I'll never forget it because I kept bringing it up the whole rest of the game. But it's like on the first drive or so, there was a play where Michigan State was kind of tugging on our guy a little bit, and Devin Gardner on the broadcast was like, "Oh, it's a little bit there, but I don't mind that because it wasn't too blatant, and all that really kind of means is that the refs are going to let the guys play, which is always I'd rather see that, but it just looks like they're going to let them play. But then they kept calling the most ticky tacky of pass interferences on us, you know, and all these other things. Like, you guys can catch these little small things, but then whatever. And then you go to the personal foul on Justin Evans. Now, yes, he shouldn't have retaliated. I think his overly is I don't know the word I'm looking for here. His retaliation was maybe a little overboard. Um, but the ref's standing right there trying to hold the two apart. And the whole time that he's just standing there, the Michigan State guy has got his arm and hand reached out and constantly holding on to Justin Evans the entire time, whether it was his jersey or wherever it was, maybe a little bit on his face mask or whatever it was, the entire time. So then, of course, Justin Evans was finally like, he knocked his arm off of him, and then he went and pushed him, and the ref called it. You know, if your ref's going to call it the entire time that you're trying to break him apart, Michigan State guy was unwilling to actually take his hands off of Justin. Why not call a double personal foul there then? But instead, it only get called on Nebraska. Again, not a factor in the game to me, right? But it's just one of those things of like, whenever you see these so blatant misses, like, it just kind of gets annoying and stuff like that, especially whenever you're getting in the emotions of the game. You know, you're just like, I'm so angry about all of this. And then, of course, you know, the broadcast team, like that Fox broadcast or FS1, whatever you want to call it, broadcast was just god awful. I mean, like, the picture, there kept kind of being this like swipey thing that kind of messed with the picture. Brando, who I usually like, was just not on his game. I guess Archie Wilson somehow, as a true freshman, has already won punter of the year in the Big Ten twice. Crazy. That's just how good he is. You know, just like was way off on a lot of things. I mean, went on a tangent that Jacory had called a fair catch at one point, but was allowed to return it. They were constantly like pointing out different things that Nebraska was doing that the refs were missing. And, you know, I can't believe that Dylan didn't sit out. I mean, it was just kind of crazy how really during the dark period, how like really Michigan State homerish they kind of started to sound. And that's weird because Devin Gardner is a Wolverine. I don't know why he started rooting for his biggest rival, but maybe not biggest rival. That would be Ohio State, but one of their biggest rivals, maybe their second, right? It was just kind of weird. I don't know. That was all off. And I think all of that just started playing into the emotions of that bad part of the game. So yeah, I just wanted to comment on that a little bit because everybody kind of has. And then here, before we get into the stats, in my preview show, I mentioned, you know, we need to start seeing certain guys really elevate. And I think in this game, we saw that. We saw Elijah Judy, Dasan McCullough, Javen Wright, Williams Winery, guys like that really step up. I think I saw Keona Davis make a lot of good plays. Cade Petrock was in there playing pretty well. Dawson Merritt was all over the field. Rex Guthrie was all over the field. Saw some improvements from Donovan Jones, kind of a good bounce back game. Andrew Marshall played out of his mind. Sierra Wright, I think, played pretty good. And so, you know, we're starting to see those. The certain guys, I think we are seeing some. Vincent Shavers, I thought, had a pretty good game too. He was, you know, we heard his name a lot. So, you know, it's good to see the guys that I mentioned who I think need to really kind of just keep progressing and get better and really start showing out. I think they did. And I think you saw a much improved defense because of it. But all right, so let's go ahead. Let's look at some stats. So we're going to start off here with some team stats of the game, just to kind of go over and kind of get a nice little overview of what we saw. So first downs pretty even. Um, but right there, fourth down efficiency, right? Like defense has got to clear that up. Almost perfect. 4 of 5. We let them have 242 total yards, and we only had 282. Passing, we allowed 156 yards passing, which I believe that's kind of what I was thinking we would give up. I think I said about 150-ish yards, which is still in this day and age of college football or just football period, really. Like that's still a really good performance. Like that's a pretty crazy performance. To only allow 156 yards passing. Now I know we only had 194, but again, our offense went absolutely anemic there for almost 2 whole quarters. Um, yeah, yards per pass, we're at 8.1. So let's go rushing. Okay. So we had 88 yards, they had 86. This says we were only at 3.3. So I'm not sure where they got that number. I can't remember if it was Husker Online. No. Can't remember what podcast I was watching, but they had mentioned like this, like it was like 6.1 yards a carry or something. Maybe that was just like in the first half or something. Or, maybe we'll go over to player stats. Maybe that'll give us a better. Because I was thinking if it's team stats, I think I don't believe these are sack adjusted. Or I think these are sack adjusted. So maybe that's where this comes in because it's including all the lost yardage from the sacks, maybe. But yeah, see, penalties pretty much wash, but huge. Like we caused a ton of turnovers in this game, and it was great. Did really well, and again, they had the possession edge. So let's take a look at the player stats. Of course, Dylan, you know, for 194, had a touchdown, had 1 interception. So that brings him to 12 touchdowns and 2 interceptions on the year. Again, that's still a pretty good ratio. I mean, I'll take that, right? We'll all take that. We just got to hope that he doesn't throw into as many problems as he was. So yeah, so here we go. As you can see, they have the Dylan yards in there. So that's how they get to the 3.3. Because yeah, Emmett was 6.4. Of course, Mackay had the 1 run for 11 yards, and then we never saw him again. And that's part of the problem too. So, we keep talking about we don't have anybody behind him. Well, they're not playing the people behind him. You're not going to get anything out of Mackay if he's only going to get 1 carry. Right? Like 1 carry for 11 yards. Nope, no more carries for you. You got your quota for the day. And even like 13 carries in a game like this with the wind, Emmett's 13 is not enough. He should have been closer to like the 18 to 19, maybe 20 carry range. Not 13, because then, yeah, look over here. We held them to 2.3. Their starting running back was only carrying the ball 3.2 yards a carry, which is good. Good to keep them around 3. I'd like to see it a little bit lower, maybe closer to the height, a 2.8, 2.9. That's a really good run defense. But I don't think, if you're allowing 3.2 yards a carry, their running game is not really going to kill you in any given game. So, and then of course, we go to the receivers. Isaiah balled out. Ja'Cory balled out. Emmett was good. It was good to see Cortez Mills get in there a little bit. Would have liked to have seen throws to Luke a little bit more, and to Dane Key. Dane Key's kind of 2 games in a row kind of not been much of a factor. And Even in this game, he had, I think, 2 targets, but no catches. So yeah, and again, 2 weeks in a row or 2 games in a row, Javin leading the team in tackles. He's all over the field. Vincent Shavers is up there. Like I said, Donovan Jones, Deshaun Singleton had 2 interceptions. You know, I made the joke online, and I love it. It's like a great dad joke. Singleton, more like Doubleton, right? Doubles, because, you know, he got 2. Anyway, I don't know. I think it's funny. I think it's funny because it's not necessarily that funny. I don't know. Nice little dad joke, I guess. Williams Nwaneri had a sack and a half. Lenhart with the sack. Elijah Judy with the sack. Dawson Merritt, you know, again, you saw him kind of flying all over. The stats, he only had 2 tackles, but, you know, saw him all over. We saw a lot of guys kind of get into that, you know, you don't usually see a whole lot. You know, Gabe Moore, Justin Rhett. So it was kind of good to see some of these guys really get a chance to play, and then they showed out. They did a really good job. I think the depth is actually pretty good on that defensive side of the ball. Yeah, so, you know, you look at that, and in you know, you feel like, at least from the defense is getting better. I'm not going to overreact too much about the offensive play, only because this is one game of seeing it play like this. And like I said, by the end of the game, it was so obvious that the win had a factor, was such a huge factor for both teams, that you have to clearly just kind of, again, not making it an excuse, but it's a realization that, yes, it played a factor, and it really changed up a lot of stuff. Again, could we have seen better play calling? Yes. Could Dylan have made quicker decisions in the pocket? Yes. But hopefully they'll be able to look at this stuff again, get ready for Maryland, and correct some of this stuff and get a little bit better. Take the wins. Learn, you know, right now that's a huge thing, because now they're learning how to win. And you're starting to see that by the fact of how they're coming back and how they're not letting bad things really snowball too bad. They're not letting it take them fully out of the game. It might have felt like that for a little bit, but a team that comes back and scores, you know, 17 unanswered points, that's not a team that started giving up, right? You don't get that from team of players that start giving up on the game. Excuse me. So, you know, and then, like I said, you look around college football and see what happened. You know, man, that Cincinnati win is looking better and better every week. I watched them play Iowa State, and man, they, especially in that first half, they came out and just dominated. They look good. And, you know, Sorsby's a hell of a quarterback, and it's a hell of a quarterback that we held to like right around 100 yards rushing, I think, or right under, and only 67 or 69 yards passing. Yeah, I think he's thrown, like I said, almost for over 300 yards every game since. I think there's one other game he threw for like 280 something or whatever. And yeah, they went out and they went to Iowa State. Or no, it was at home for them. That's right. But they went out and at home beat the number 14th ranked team in the country, Iowa State, and pretty convincingly. I know they obviously let Iowa State kind of back in that second half, and it was much closer of a game, but they were dominating. Then you go look at whatever happened in LA with UCLA and Penn State. Man, they let Oregon beat them twice. What in the world just gets dominated by UCLA? Insane. Then you look at a really struggling team in Florida come out and beat Texas. I mean, again, this year in college football, it's just been nuts week to week. And whenever you start seeing that type of stuff, and then you bring all that back in to your team who could have done what those teams did and lose to a team that they shouldn't have lost to, but they didn't. At the end of the day, at the end of the game, we still had more points and we won. And so putting that into perspective, you feel a little bit different the next day about this win. A lot of things to correct, a lot of things to get better at for sure. But hey, we're 4-1. Take the win, and now let's concentrate on Maryland. Speaking of the Maryland game, I'll probably do my preview show on Friday night. Don't know what time I will be able to do that yet. Like I said, it's going to be a very hectic week at work for myself. Work really long days into the evening, most of the nights next week. So I think the only day I would really even be able to do it would be Friday. So look for that. It's probably going to be a quick one because, again, with my work schedule, probably won't have a whole lot of time to watch or dig into anything Maryland related. But I'll get on here, give my few opinions on what I can think up of, and we'll have a good time doing it. And then, hey, we'll wake up Saturday morning, go Big Red, and hopefully watch them pull out another win out in Maryland. So, again, thanks. If you guys are enjoying this stuff, please hit the like button, leave a comment, hit the subscribe button. Love to see you guys leave some comments and kind of whatever you guys are thinking. We can communicate back and forth like that. Anything like that, go follow me on X. Here's my Twitter or X handle, BRN Pod 25. So until then, guys, thanks for watching and see you next time. Go Big Red.